So I want to say thank you for allowing us to be here to talk about Skills for Rhode Island's future, and more specifically, a program that we run under the statewide umbrella of Prepare Rhode Island, which is really designed to make sure that every student in Rhode Island, whether they are in our public education system or higher ed system, have access to opportunities to ensure that they are prepared for the future of work. And our organization, Skills for Rhode Island's Future, has the privilege and honor of running a very high stakes internship program, as well as cultivating year-round work in order to get employers involved in education to really move and push the needle on education. Today, we're going to have a panel discussion that's going to focus on the concept of work-based learning. And I am really honored to have our guests here with us today, our employer partners, Debbie Proffitt, who is the Vice President of Department of Defense Operations and Business Development for Purvis Systems. We have Rick Metters, who is the Vice President and the Regional Public Affairs and Government Relationship Officer for Fidelity Investments, and Wendy Wallace, who is with the Rhode Island Department of Education and is the Prepare RI Fellow, and also is helping oversee some of the charter school work here in Rhode Island. So I want to thank our panelists for joining. And then we also have two of our student interns from last summer. We have Cameron and Talon. Hi, Cameron. Hi, Talon. Nice to see you all. I feel like it's been years since I've seen you, who had the privilege of working with Debbie Proffitt at Purvis Systems. And so we've assembled a group of panelists to really be able to talk about what is work-based learning, why is it important, and really understanding the different roles that people play in the intersectionality of that. So to get us started, I'd love for each of the panelists to do a quick intro on who they are. And Wendy, we'll start with you. And as you're introducing yourself, if you wouldn't mind sharing, what does work-based learning mean to you?
Great, thank you, Nina. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wendy Wallace, and I am the Prepare RI Fellow sitting in the Rhode Island Department of Education. And so my background encompasses of various degrees of work-based learning in education and private sector. Prior to working at RIDE, I was an associate director at Year Up, managing the project management curriculum in relation to really preparing students for the corporate setting and really thinking about what does that process look like, what systems that we need to put in place in order to facilitate that. And so bringing that experience plus my federal government, my corporate experience to RIDE has definitely been helpful in terms of managing this initiative statewide. As you know, Prepare RI is all about preparing students for college and career. So, and also being a native Rhode Islander and being one who not only took advantage of early college, but also worked and went to school full time in order to develop the skills that I needed in terms of my career, as well as getting the degrees that I needed in order to succeed in this landscape. And so bringing all of that experience, plus being a mother and plus being an aunt in many different hats and seeing various experiences and different perspectives to this work has really, really been beneficial because I feel like I can see the entire ecosystem. And so work-based learning holds a very, very important place in my heart because I really believe that in order for people to, one, understand what types of careers they can go into, they have to understand and experience it beforehand, right? So we talk a lot about career exploration prior to actual work-based learning. And we know that many of us are hands-on and kinesthetic learners. So work-based learning to me is really just getting your hands in and exploring and figuring out what is the best fit in terms of you as a student or you as an adult, and really bringing those learning experiences to life and in order for us to be able to, one, bridge the academic and the workforce gaps. And so I can go on and on about that, but I'm going to stop there. And I guess I'll pass it over to Rick.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Wendy. Wendy's been a wonderful partner with us at Fidelity Investments and on a fairly notable project that I'll talk about in a moment. But my role is Vice President of Regional Public Affairs and Community Relations and Government Relations for Fidelity. We have a significant campus in Smithfield, Rhode Island, across the street from Bryant University, as well as an investor center across from the Providence Place Mall. in terms of our own perspective at Fidelity and kind of my personal perspective, I think for us, it's looking at work-based learning, making those connections between secondary education, between K-12 education and the workplace, and doing it with intentionality, creativity, and thoughtful design. And you know, I know that both as a dad and as a husband of a special needs educator, and having served 8 years as a school committee member as well, an elected school committee member in my hometown here in Massachusetts, I know that those connections may seem that they should be obvious, but oftentimes they are not. And that we in the corporate community candidly need to do a better job of outreach, of communication, of collaboration, so that those pathways that both Nina and Wendy have talked about are clearer for students. It's difficult to navigate. And I think to the extent that our work can help contribute to the state's efforts for work-based learning, hopefully it will demystify, make things a bit more transparent, and create better immediate impact on the lives of students and allow them to own their own futures moving forward.
And Rick, we will get back to you to talk about exactly the investments that Fidelity has been making, but I'd love to hear from Debbie also. And Debbie, you wear two hats, so I definitely introduced you as your role with Purvis Systems, but what I did not mention is that you also are a member of the Governor's Workforce Board, and you chair the Career Pathways Committee, and are a big supporter of work-based learning, including our internship program. So again, if you want to introduce yourself to the folks that are here with us today, what your role is in all of this and what work-based learning means to you.
Yeah, thanks, Nina. Good afternoon, everyone. So as Nina mentioned, I am the Vice President of our Defense Operations and Business Development, kind of a hidden industry in Rhode Island. We don't hear a lot about it unless you're down in the Newport area. But I do wear another hat, and that is on the Governor's Workforce Board. And as Nina mentioned, co-chairing the Career Pathways Committee for about 4 years now. I'm into my 4th year. And that committee is an amazing group of people from throughout Rhode Island, partnered very strongly with RIDE, partnered with a lot of providers. And that committee actually defined and set the standards for a work-based learning program within the state. We wanted to ensure it was high quality and that it met certain standards. So it's really near and dear to my heart because it's been a lot of work for that group and for the Governor's Workforce Board and RIDE as a partnership to get that in place, get it into the schools as a requirement, and ensure it's a high quality program. So it's exciting to be able to get out here and talk about it. And Prepare I is certainly really important to me. We had an intern the first year, participated last year, and so we'll see what happens this summer. But my winning team, 2 of my winning team members are part of our panel. So welcome, Talon and Cameron. It was a lot of fun, despite the huge quick pivot to virtual.
Absolutely. So Debbie, you have set up the introduction of Talon and Cameron beautifully. Talon and Cameron were 2 of the interns that participated in the work-based learning opportunity that was created through Skills for Rhode Island's Future with a program that we have now coined Empower Interns. And we believe internships are one of the most powerful tools to get students that insight into what it's like in the world of work. And so I would love to start with Talon and then Cameron, over to you. And if you want to introduce yourself, where do you go to school? And tell us a little bit about, Talon, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience that you had working alongside Debbie and Purvis Systems as an intern last summer with the Empower Interns program. So Talon, over to you, and then Cameron will come to you.
Hey, good afternoon, I'm Talon. I'm currently finishing up my freshman year at Northeastern University. I'm studying, thank you, studying mechanical engineering. And so I'm actually, last year I was a year 2 intern. So in the summer after my junior year, I actually did an in-person internship with Prepare RI. So with that, I was placed at Amgen Biopharmaceuticals in West Warwick. And then transitioning to last summer, of course, I worked with Debbie and everyone at Purvis with the second year internship program. So basically my role in this was I was the CEO of our team. Every day I was part of putting together meetings, leading the team, leading us through the daily challenges and weekly challenges that came along with it. And in the end, our team ended up creating a prototype for a wearable device that could detect symptoms of COVID-19 in the military. And my biggest takeaway, I would say, is just that position of being a leader was something so new to me. But I really loved the Prepare RI program because I always felt like I was in a supportive and safe environment to reach out and do those things that I wasn't used to, but learned that I was totally able to do that. So my little spiel.
Thank you, Talon. And Cameron, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself again and where you are in school. And then also if you want to pick up where Talon left off, and you were the COO of the company. So you and Talon were two of the leadership team members under the Purvis System sponsored problem statement. But Cameron, a little bit about yourself and what the experience was like for you for the summer internship program.
All right, sounds good. So yeah, I'm a high school senior at North Kingstown High School. And I was, as Nina said, the chief operating officer. I worked alongside Talon to do some of the coordinating and daily events at the team. I had a lot of interesting experiences I had some really exciting experiences with the internship. It was really kind of eye-opening because I'd never really taken many leadership positions. It just always seemed impossible. And I learned that it was really something that almost anybody can do. Lead a team, take charge. And it's really a great way to step forward between, the internship was really a middle ground between education in a school and real life.
Thank you, Cameron. So just so that folks who are listening know, Talon and Cameron were part again of our Empower Intern summer internship program, where last summer we pivoted to a virtual model. And they were part of one of 20 student-led corporations who adopted a very complex business problem that our business partners were going through. So Debbie, would you mind just kind of putting into context what Purvis brought to the table as an employer partner? What was the problem statement, and how did Purvis Systems support Talon and Cameron and the 18 other students that they had on their student-led corporation?
Sure, Nina, thanks. So when this whole internship started, Nina and her team pivoted to looking at what are businesses' COVID-19 issues. So I did some research. I found that the Army was looking for proposals to come up with a wearable device for Army personnel to wear to detect COVID, so that if they were out in the field or they were anywhere, they could have that early notification. So that was the problem statement posed to the team. So the role I played as a business advisor and a mentor, they would come with questions. They would come with, here's our write-up. What do you think? Does this work? We also brought in guest speakers. We were very, very fortunate to bring in General Callahan from the National Guard in Rhode Island, who gave the teams were fantastic. We actually had two teams working on the problem statement. So the teams got very well organized, put together their questions in advance, and got some really detailed and informative feedback from the general on how the Army would actually use this, or how another military person would use this device. And they went through iterations of their design. They did learn iterative design, what might fail. Okay, how do we step back and redo this? Do you think this will work? And they had to look at production ideas. They had to look at marketing ideas. How will we pitch this and sell to the military, which is not a normal sales pitch that you would do. So the whole full life cycle of a product, and designing and developing a product, the team went through that. It was pretty amazing, all within 6 or 7 weeks. On top of Skills Rhode Island's teachers throwing other fire drills at them and other exercises that they also had to complete. They were getting credit towards college throughout the summer. So it was a really robust and challenging summer for the students.
And it's a great way, Debbie, would you agree, to get employers involved, to really be able to push the boundaries of education? And I don't know about you, but I was blown away by what the students created. And your team, as you mentioned, was your winning team. So Talon and Cameron were part of the winning team. And as part of the internship, they get paid as interns. So we pay them $12 an hour. And then the winning team, every member of the winning team also received a scholarship of $5,000 to help further their education, put it towards, again, their college, or if they're going into a career, to help them with any expenses that they might have to be successful in their career journey. Rick, I want to go to you for a moment, because Fidelity has made some interesting investments in work-based learning with us at Skills in the Rhode Island Department of Education. And we talked about internships as being a kind of a high-stakes work-based learning opportunity. But we know, and Rick, you mentioned that you had spent 6 years on a school board in Massachusetts. I am going into my 13th year on the school board in Providence and know education well. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the state of education and why you believe work-based learning, like what does Fidelity believe work-based learning can do to strengthen the educational system? And you did a lot of this in Massachusetts, right? We're just learning about a lot of the stuff in Rhode Island.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, clearly we need to go far beyond, there was the reading, writing, arithmetic of days of yore back in the dark ages when I went to school. And then we had supposed 21st century skills were the latest areas of focus: collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking. I think we still need to bring those concepts to life in an experiential manner. I think work-based learning can do that. In addition, I think there's perhaps what I would call the 5th C of the 21st century skills, and that's change. And I think that, as it applies to Fidelity, we are trying to evolve our business very quickly. In financial services, it's incredibly competitive, not simply from startups, but from companies that we wouldn't have envisioned to be competitors even a few years ago, are now very much competitors to us today. And we need to adopt a digital first mentality. And so we appreciate the impact that the students have, because they're digital natives in ways that preceding generations aren't. I think that to the extent that we can also take an investor's mindset to this work, to think longer term, to think about impact, I think all of those are guideposts in terms of how we approach work-based learning, how we approach our investments in the community, and candidly, how we invest in the careers of folks like Cameron and Talon as well, and their peers.
And so, Rick, talk to me about Fidelity and why this was so important, and the investments that you've made to help usher in this culture of work-based learning and really bridging the gap between what employers can bring to the table and what our students need to learn.
So I think it's not simply a Fidelity perspective. We worked with Tom Giordano and the Partnership for Rhode Island, which is an organization composed of the CEOs of the state's largest companies. And we were looking for an opportunity to really bridge the gap between companies and the educational ecosystem of the state. I think so much has been done. And so we wanted to make sure that whatever we did was targeted and met a real and demonstrated need. So in what I think is truly a public-private nonprofit partnership, we worked collaboratively together with Skills as the intermediary, with the Rhode Island Department of Education, Department of Labor and Training, the Governor's Workforce Board, and we're convened by an outside project management group called Common Impact, which leveraged Fidelity's associates, its technologists, to create a work-based learning platform called the Rhode Island Work-Based Learning Navigator. And it's ideally set up so that companies large and small, whether it be a firm of one or a firm of 1,000, can list the opportunities that they have, whether it be an internship, whether it be a one-off project, whether it be a tour of a facility, whether it be career panels, whatever those companies, large and small, can contribute. It ideally provides a platform to connect to the real needs of educators and their students. And so we've launched this website, and Skills is providing the absolutely critical intermediary portion of it to make that connection. It's riwblnavigator.com. It's live now. Skills members are working with companies large and small to work on the content side. And also because of our great partnership with RIDE and school districts around the state, skills and also tap into what teachers are looking for and making sure that the demand and the supply calibrate correctly.
Thank you, Rick. And that URL for the website has been put in the chat for those of you who might be interested in going to that work-based learning navigator, as well as the website for our agency. And Mishri, if you wouldn't mind putting in our Empower Interns website as well, so that you can see the work that we do through work-based learning, through our internship programs. Rick, I know that the investments that Fidelity is making to bring this work-based learning navigator to light has been really an amazing opportunity for us to create robust learning opportunities for our students. And you mentioned RIDE a few times. So Wendy, I'm going to go over to you to talk about why why is RIDE looking at work-based learning as an opportunity? And let's frame this for a moment. We've just come off one of the hardest years in education, right, because of the pandemic. And after we hear from Wendy, Talon, and Cameron, I want you to share like what the difference is between, what you've learned in school and what you learned in your internship program, again, that work-based learning. But Wendy, we're coming off a year where we're hearing from students that engagement has been difficult, right? There's been a lot of virtual learning, a lot of hybrid learning, and Rhode Island Department of Education is constantly looking at ways to make sure that not only students are engaged, but they are actually improving their academics. It's no secret, Rhode Island's academic performance of its students is very low. We're significantly lower than most of our peers around us in New England. I mentioned that I'm on the board in Providence. Our math scores, our English scores in terms of competency are very low. Fewer than 3% in some of our high schools. We have folks that are proficient in math. The numbers really need to go up. And I know that RIDE is looking at different strategies. How does work-based learning play into that?
So in terms of work-based learning in the education landscape, the way that RIDE is looking at it is essentially based off of the data and based off of student experience, we can tell that we need to do a better job, particularly around student proficiency in math and ELA. So when it comes to work-based learning, thinking about ways that we can integrate strategies and specifically intervention strategies around proficiency to ensure that students are actually equipped to then be able to shift into college or career, right? So after their secondary education, they should have the option and be empowered to make those decisions. And so work-based learning is a huge component of it because it's through those experiences, it's through the internships, it's through the apprenticeships, it's through service learning, school-based enterprises and industry projects that the students get a real sneak and a view into what the real world looks like, but also they can learn and be able to apply those academic principles. And so we just learned, based off of everything with the data and student experiences that, hey, this is an opportunity for us to be able to shift and pivot when it comes to how we are viewing education in the States. And also there's been so many opportunities for us to be able to get additional funding in order to disseminate some of these strategies and information. And just from the RIDE side of things, we know that there is a huge need for educators in particular to be trained and to understand the value of work-based learning. A lot of times educators will, particularly traditional educators, will just go in and go through a regular training and then get their licenses and then start teaching in the classroom, but really showing that, hey, it's not just about the subject that you're teaching, but how can it be applied to the real world? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're preparing students for. And so RIDE is committed to ensuring that our educators are equipped and have the necessary tools in order to then empower and equip students and to be able to be successful outside of just the high school space. It's a different way of thinking about it. And I don't want to ignore or negate the fact that all of this is us making sure that students have information to make the necessary decisions for their own lives, right? So the student voice and the student perspective of things is super important. At the end of the day, we want them to feel empowered to make the decisions for themselves, and we will be doing them a disservice if we don't say, hey, this is an important opportunity or something that you can take advantage of so that you can then be able to contribute to society in a meaningful way. So it's moving from the silos, right? Just academics and then employment, but really thinking about ways that we can integrate all the different pieces of it and showing them you are able, you have the potential to do some of this work, and we don't want to ignore that as you know, the Rhode Island Department of Education. So that's the way that we're looking at it. And of course, there's additional, you know, infrastructures that we have to put in place, and where this is a continuum, right? It's a journey, but really thinking through, you know, even with the educational and even workforce landscape just shifting so much, we have to make sure that we are agile and preparing our students for the future.
Absolutely. And the message about contextualized learning is so important, right? Making the connections about what students need to learn in school and how it's going to apply in the real world. So Talon, how did the internship program do that for you? How did it help prepare you? Or was it a different experience? Or did you feel like you were in school? Can you talk a little bit about that? And now that you're in college too, right? So you've had 2 years with us, and now that you're in college, did you feel like you were better prepared to enter the college space?
So I think with the difference between work-based learning and actual school, you know, in schools, we're learning these basic concepts and basic content. And I think anyone who has a kid or has been around kids, or I mean, everyone's been one, a lot of times you're hearing like, when am I ever going to use this? When am I going to use calculus in my life? When am I going to write a DBQ? And these things are really important, and they develop skills along the way, obviously. But I think you know, students in high school, we start getting bored doing the same worksheets over and over, and, you know, doing all of the same content that we might not be that interested in. But where I think work-based learning becomes really important is that it gives students something that we can be proud of and something that we can be really like actually passionate in, alongside that learning that is obviously really important in those simple skills. So I would say for me this past summer, that was really important, that it gave me something that I was super passionate about to wake up every morning and work on. But also knowing that I was learning those skills along the way and applying those smaller soft skills that I probably didn't even think about when I was learning to write DBQs, or any other skills that I was learning in school. So I'd say being in college, I definitely feel a lot more confident in myself after having my position last year. Honestly, last summer during all our meetings, I started losing my voice because I had never talked that much in my life. I would say I was a pretty shy kid. I, you know, always would get nervous, like saying the wrong thing or just never being right. But I definitely learned to be a lot more confident in what I'm saying. And then even if I do make a mistake, you know, it's not really that big of a deal. I learn and I grow. So I'd say just like in the interactions that I've had in college so far and in my classes, that confidence has been really important, that confidence in myself, and everything that I do. And yeah. That's about it.
And if you want to see that confidence on display, Talon was a rock star during the students have to learn public speaking. And at the end of the summer, they actually had to pitch their ideas to a juried panel. And we really try to inspire innovation in anything that we do. And they learned about project management. We had a very agile work environment, as Debbie mentioned. And so every week they had these weekly sprints that they had to get through in order to get to their final product, turn their idea into an actual concept that they could pitch. And I know Mishri has put in the chat kind of a recap. And so you can certainly see Talon and all of her team members in their pitch, and you'll definitely see that confidence on full display. Cameron, over to you. And what was this, how was this different than school, or how did it help you in school? And I know that you've been applying to college. Where are you going, by the way, in the fall?
I'm going to University of Rhode Island to study chemical engineering, which I'm really excited about.
Congratulations. So how did this internship prepare you? What was it like? How was it different than school? How did it help you in school?
Well, I just found that it really took me away from school, sort of like it took all the skills that I learned at school. Like in school, you learn valuable information, but you might not fully know how to apply it. And then when you go into work-based learning, you really learn how to apply it. It's like adding context to the knowledge.
And talk about that context for me, right? And so we heard Talon say, like, why do I need calculus? What was that? What was that moment of, oh, now I remember, now I know why I've got to buckle down in math class or take chemistry a little more seriously?
Yeah, so we were obviously like building a prototype of that device that Talon was talking about, where we were trying to detect COVID. So it really took into account basic anatomy, physiology, electronics. Like we had a cool charging system basically where we'd use wireless charging like you see in electric toothbrushes. And that's physics. That's not Lorentz force, it's inductance charging. So electromagnetism sort of plays into that. So when we were doing our project, it really took everything from everywhere and put it into context. We used our English skills, like we were reaching out to businesses about potential supply chains if this idea we had actually came into play. Then we obviously looked into a lot of the science of it, the math. One of the team members, Ellie, the chief information officer, actually built a beautiful CAD model of our device, which is obviously engineering skills, computer aided design, and there was definitely a bit of math to make all the parts fit together. So just everything from everywhere fit into the internship and gave it better context. We were working towards something more tangible than before.
Absolutely. Cameron, we heard from Talon, and Talon, I'll let you jump back in here again too. For those of you who are listening, if you can see, it was truly an amazing educational experience for all of our students. And this was just one of 20 student-led corporations that we had who were working on equally exciting and innovative challenges. Cameron, we heard Talon talk about her confidence really build through the program. Do you feel like this program helped you with your applications as you were thinking about college? Did you notice any changes in yourself during the summer and building that confidence as well?
Yes, definitely. So beforehand, I was not exactly the most enthusiastic public speaker. I was usually one of those group members at a table, like in a group project at school, who'd be sitting there waiting for somebody else to take charge, which was basically everybody most of the time in any group project at a school. But it really just taught me to take charge, that anybody can take charge if they really just think about doing it, if they want to do it. And it's like not some untouchable, intangible thing to lead.
Talon, I know that you wanted to jump back in here. Go right ahead.
Yeah, just something that Cam mentioned reminded me. I thought it was really cool seeing how the students that were just kind of general team members and as well as the other members of the C-suite were really able to just pursue the thing or like the portions of the project that they were really interested in. So I kind of feel like I was involved in everything, but I remember like Cameron was really interested in how the batteries would work. So he kind of just set off by himself and did all this research and put together all these models for how we should be incorporating the batteries and brought it back to the team so that we could see how it worked. But it was really cool that he could take his interest and bring it back to us. And then I know, as he said, Ellie was already really interested and had skills in 3D modeling. So the project gave her the ability to do something that she had experience in. And then I remember another team member, he really loved video producing. And so he already had this like cool software to put together videos. So he was able to go off on his own and do videos for the marketing. So everyone really got to, when available in the scope of the project, got to do things that they were interested in and wanted to build those skills in even more, which I thought was really cool.
Thank you, Talon. I know we're coming up on almost the end, and there's a few things that we wanted to just kind of make sure that everybody knows how to get involved with our program. But if you're interested in learning more about the project that Talon and Cameron worked on under Debbie's leadership, the link to their final pitch is there. I know that work-based learning is near and dear to the heart of Skills for Rhode Island's Future. It's why we do this work. Juan, I noticed your comment in the chat about CTE program. CTE students are very much a part of this, and CTE is one of the best ways of being able to immerse students in learning. And so that is very much part of the fabric of everything that we talk about when we're looking at work-based learning and under Prepare RI. And I know there's been a lot of investments about making sure we're aligning not only career and technical education pathways, but other career pathways in our schools to the demands of the workforce. And Wendy referenced this, Rick referenced it, Debbie referenced it. Our workforce is changing, and we need to all roll up our sleeves and be a part of that change. And that starts with our employers, because you are actually living that change at an accelerated pace, and our school systems tend to lag behind. So we're looking for coaches and mentors and investors and employer partners to really build out this concept of work-based learning and creating these magical networks between employers and schools. Wendy mentioned that teachers, they go for their education and then they go into the classroom, and a lot of times they're disconnected with the rapidly changing world around them. So we need teacher externships. We need employers to be able to invest in the classroom, bring those rich project-based learning opportunities that Debbie brought with Purvis Systems and that complex problem statement, turn it into a year-round program, turn it into an opportunity that can be the basis for curriculum that's taught in school, because it's what's going to inspire kids to want to learn. It makes sense. It makes those connections between why they need to learn calculus, or why they need to pay attention to geometry, or why they need to learn how to perfect their writing skills and how it's going to apply. I know that's why I do this work. I know why our organization has taken on a lot of this. I'm going to ask each and every one of my panelists to say, why do you do this? And if we have people who are listening who are intrigued, why should they roll up their sleeves, get involved, volunteer, become a coach or mentor, come in as an employer? Rick, we're going to start with you.
I think that Talon and Cameron have been perhaps far more eloquent than certainly I have in terms of the why, because I think it's changing the lives of young Rhode Islanders, and ideally, keeping them here, I think as well. And I think to the extent that we as Fidelity, as a large employer, a large technology employer, can help here, maybe that some of our efforts, particularly with the Navigator project, maybe we help illuminate some of those pathways and help make those connections and make them real. And I think, we've seen firsthand here today that those connections can be profound and transformative. So that's my pitch for employers, large and small, for investing time, effort, and energy into endeavors like this.
Wendy, why should folks get involved?
Just thinking about your own return on investment, right? If you are here investing in students and investing in the economy, then your own workforce pipeline will be strengthened, and the exact things that you've been asking us, better prepare the future leaders of tomorrow, is what we're dedicating our time to. So just you being a partner and supporting that, thinking about your own company's future and the ways that you can benefit from that. Just putting a business principle to it, right? Think about it. If you invest now, then in the future, you will have to invest less when it comes to training, development, et cetera, because you will already have strong leaders and strong employees. And at the end of the day, it's really about strengthening the Rhode Island economy, and what better way to do it. And from a more personal perspective, I just really believe that we should empower each individual to reach their fullest potential. And what better way to do this than preparing them academically and with better skill sets to support, this growing economy.
Thank you, Wendy. Debbie, over to you. Why should people get involved? And you played multiple roles. You were the employer sponsor, you were a coach, you were a mentor, you were big sister, you were auntie to all of the kids.
Yeah, so first, before I jump into that, I just want to shout out to everyone in the state that has been involved in work-based learning because of all the efforts. A recent study by Bellwether Education Partners and the American Student Assistance assessed every work-based learning program across the country. And Rhode Island had more green marks. There are only 2 other states that were in line with or above Rhode Island. That's huge. That is huge to look at all this hard work, because it has been going on for 4 years, longer than 4 years. So really significant, and thanks to everybody who's contributed. And Skills Rhode Island's Future, you really made this program happen when we first kicked it off. Purpose has taken our first year's intern. He actually developed a work-based learning program that we wanted to roll into schools, and I'm going to try to put that in the work-based learning navigator. He did a program on understanding how sound travels through water, sonar and acoustics. Very, very important for submarine, very, very important for defense. Well, how can a high school put that into their 80-hour program? So we have exercises, we have a whole program. But my one word for why you should do this and why employers should get involved, it's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun. You get to see the impact you have on all these students. You build your workforce, you build the students. Cameron and Talon, there's no way I believe that either of you were ever shy. You were amazing through the program, so I cannot believe that you both said you were shy. They did an amazing job, and just to see that growth in our future workers, we're all complaining that we can't hire. We don't have, we have a lot of job openings. We don't have candidates. I mean, we are going crazy trying to find people. So this is the way you build them. And literally it was a lot of fun throughout the summer. I bounced between 2 teams and saw the dynamics of the leadership teams, how different those leadership teams were. That's the real world, that you have different personalities. They were both tackling the same problem, but really, really fun to just see what happened. And you can make a huge difference.
Thank you, Debbie. So Talon and Cameron, the floor is yours. Talon, we'll start with you. We have people listening. We have employers that want to get involved. We have adults who want to serve as coaches and mentors. Why should they do this, Talon?
I think for employers and mentors, I think my perspective on real life jobs seems kind of monotonous. I think, but getting into one of these programs can be a big change in your career path or in your day-to-day life. Going from working with a bunch of adults to working with a bunch of teenagers, students. I think we're really flexible and ductile and creative. So I think that can actually be a lot of fun. And as we've said, the impacts that you can make on a student's life can last a really long time. And I think if any students listening in on why you should get involved in work-based learning, as we've said, just to summarize, it's really an invaluable experience, and especially the way that Prepare RI offers it. It can be a really short-term part of your life, 6 to 7 weeks, but can really change you and help you grow for the better and just be more prepared for your future.
Great, thank you, Talon. Cameron, over to you. Why should folks get involved?
Before I say why people should get involved, I'd just like to say, get involved. It's life-altering for everyone involved. As one of the people who's doing the learning, I found it life-altering because it really just opened my eyes to what a person can be like throughout their life. And for people young and old, like sponsors or people being sponsored, it's really important because it builds connections, friends, and really just professionality. It makes life easier for everyone because you have those connections that can help you throughout life. And it really just shapes your career because you know what you can do. You learn more about yourself.
Great, thank you, Cameron. So we are currently recruiting employer partners. We're looking for coaches, we're looking for mentors, we're looking for guest speakers, we're looking for investors to invest in our future talent. And if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Nina Pande. I am the director at Skills for Rhode Island's Future. All of our information has been put in the chat. Toonie, you know how to reach us if anybody wants to connect with us. And I hope that some of you do call, reach out, because our young children deserve the best. And that starts with us willing to invest in each and every single one of them. Thank you again for allowing us to be here. We look forward to future conversations.